Hello and welcome to this video on the Happy Little Pups channel, where we're going to talk about how to choose a book to narrate when you're just starting out. That being said, I am a newbie to narration. I am just finishing my second book, and what knowledge I have, I've gleaned from YouTubers. What you're going to find in this video has been on my experience so far, so take it with a grain of salt, but hopefully it will be of some value to you. Another note to keep in mind, this is the second time I'm doing the audio for this video, as I listened back a few weeks after making this video the first time, I found it far too cringy and I just had to try and do a better job. All that's to say that if you notice the visuals don't line up well with the audio, that's the reason for it. If you're new to this channel, you might be wondering what you're watching, and it's simply some digital art of the happy little pup going on while I talk about this video's topic. Areas that I'm going to cover are how to find a book. I chose a public domain book, criteria for choosing that book, what books I've chosen, what I've learned, changes I've made or would make, and then any tips and tricks. There were a couple reasons that I chose a public domain book for my narration. The big one being I didn't want to have any copyright issues and I wanted to be able to publish these. Other reasons are that I didn't have to wait for an author to give me permission to narrate their book, and I didn't have to work so closely with someone about getting direction or changing how my performance was. While this would be very good constructive criticism and help me grow and become a better narrator, I knew that for myself I needed to lower any obstacles that would potentially put a roadblock in my journey for just starting to narrate. While I haven't really looked into copyright issues for public domains or other books in general very much, what I did find was an excerpt stating that you want to wait at least 100 years after that person lived to be confident that there won't be any sort of copyright issue that will find you in the future. To access a public domain book, you can use your library or one of the free library apps. I searched on the internet and I found Gutenberg.org, and that's what I use so far for my public domain books. The next thing I want to talk about is the criteria for choosing the book. The first book you read can be quite intimidating, and you want to think about ways that you can lower that intimidation factor so that you aren't stopped from even starting in the first place. The length of the book is something to consider. I wanted to do a shorter book so that I wouldn't get overwhelmed or burnt out, and I would have the reward of seeing that goal accomplished to move me on to the next book. Dialogue and characters are something else to consider, because keeping track, if you choose to do voices, of all of the characters, how they should sound, and being consistent can be a little overwhelming and intimidating. And while you certainly can just read them normally, I know that when I choose to do a dialogue book, I want to have some sort of variance between the characters to help bring life to the narration. Because of this, I chose a book that was nonfiction and very informative. Choosing a book you've read before or taking the time to read the book before you start narrating it can be really helpful to getting the tone of the book right. That being said, I didn't have a public domain nonfiction book that I had read, so I chose one that fit the other criteria. Now, I certainly could have taken the time to read the book beforehand, but I tend to not want to reread books very often, and if I were to do that, that would have put the time before I even started narrating out even further, and that might have given me even more reasons to not get started in the first place. So I chose the rockier path of just starting to read the book and recording. To me, this next point is arguably the most important when you're trying to choose your book, and that's that it should be something that you're interested in. It's hard to get through a book if none of it piques your interest. You're going to be more prone to quit when you just got started. Having not read the book beforehand, I relied on the book summaries to help me choose which one I was going to get started with. And the last thing that I used to help me choose the book to read was how famous the author was. I didn't want to choose a book or an author that were terribly well known because I know this isn't going to be my best performance, and I want time to practice and hopefully not be found by too many people because that helped me be brave about posting it in the first place, and eventually I will get better and may even tackle some of those well-known authors. Maybe you're a little curious about what book I chose to read. That book was The Writing of Fiction by Edith Wharton. Its summary is that it is a window into Wharton's mind as she ponders the intertwined arts of reading and writing. I found this interesting because I have a WordPress that I publish really short stories for the Happy Little Pup on, so I thought that that might help me add value to my blog's content. I'm nearly done with my second book, and the criteria I used to choose that book was a little different from what I did for the first one. I actually chose a longer book. I still chose a book with little dialogue. It was still something I found interesting. And I chose an author that was a little more well-known, at least to me. The book that I chose was Walden by Henry David Thoreau. He talks about his ponderings, musings during his 2-year stay in a cabin that he builds by Walden Pond. So what did I learn from narrating a book and 3/4? First of all, I think the best advice that I got was to just get started. It's so easy to get trapped in analysis paralysis or pursuit for perfection. Breaking things down into small, attainable, realistic goals is what helped me overcome that pursuit for perfection and analysis paralysis. I started with what I had, which was my phone, so I first used the voice memos. Then I used the Apple earbuds with the mic. And then I went from importing the voice memos into iMovie to just doing a voiceover in iMovie. And from there, I am where I am currently at, which is using the Audacity software. I will say, personal story here, I did not open this and work with it for at least a week or two because I was so overwhelmed and I didn't know where to start. Then one day I said, well, let's just watch a YouTube video, and that made it seem far less intimidating. I also challenged myself to read at least 5 minutes every day. The goal of this was not to be perfect at narrating. The goal of this was to get in the habit of narrating. I was also able to figure out how long the book was going to take me to read, and writing it down on the calendar, my finished date, was so rewarding and took away the intimidating number of nearly 200 pages. Seeing that I was going to be done in a month or two at most seemed so doable. I could have certainly made this go faster or slower, but I thought that that was a great tool to use to help you see your progress. I am currently recording on a set of Turtle Beach gaming headsets. Again, not the best equipment for voiceovers and narrating, but it's what I have, and I like its sound quality a little better than the Apple earbuds. I've also learned that it is definitely worthwhile to read the section you're going to narrate ahead of time. I will read it really quickly. I won't put any inflection. I just want to get my mouth used to forming those words so I'm less likely to stutter and slip up and have to reread a section numerous times. This has really helped with the flow, and that's helped me not get too frustrated. This is going to start flowing into changes that I've made. Along with reading the section ahead of time before narrating, I will also, right after I've read, go back and listen to that section and make sure I'm okay with how it sounds. The last section are tips and tricks, and these are just to keep it really simple. Set attainable goals. Just get started. Be consistent in showing up and reading. It's okay if you're not consistent in your performance. And try and have fun and enjoy the process. Enjoy growing and learning and getting better. This does take time, so you might want to be at a certain level off the bat, but it's so important to understand that that journey begins with a single step, and it's typically not a short journey. Also, using YouTubers that do voice coaching, voice acting, following their YouTube videos can be really helpful and insightful and give you a little boost of confidence and things to try to help elevate your performance. I hope that you found this video interesting and helpful. If so, please give that like button a boop like it is the Happy Little Pup's nose. Leave a comment down below. Are you narrating any books? Subscribe if you want to know when more videos come out. I do plan to continue to share my journey with you on starting a YouTube channel, digital art, and narration.